Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blue Please right here on CynicalBrit.com, and it's my pleasure to bring you an interview with some guys that you should have heard of by now, unless you've been living under a rock when it comes to World of Warcraft. And these guys come from the Daily Blink, and I'd like to introduce you, Chris and Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, how you doing?
Not too bad at all. So,
sound more enthusiastic, Mike. Come on.
yeah, hi.
How are you?
There you go. See, you can't... I don't know, and enthusiasm costs lives. It's a little bit risky, but I think we'll take the risk for the time being. Just make sure that we're actually delivering the quality product today, because I know you guys are massively into delivering quality products. And I'd like to start by asking exactly how this all got started. Where did the Daily Blink come from?
Well, the Daily Blink started when I was blogging for a different website called Metro Blogs. This guy had this really great idea of taking a network of blogs, each one focused on a city, but he was a big World of Warcraft player, and so he created one for Azeroth, I think almost as a joke, just to see how it would do, and then it took off. And I was blogging for them, and I just started making these fake news articles for them, and just kind of a real onion kind of flavor. And it was kind of funny. I did like 3 or 4, and then didn't do it for a few years. And I was looking for a side project and having some fun with it, and I had always wanted to do a webcomic. I never really had the time or the drive, but I really liked this idea, and so I put it together with one of my coworkers at the time, and we did it for a while, and it was starting to get noticed a little bit, but then we did a little bit of hiatus, and then when I launched it back up again, Mike had already been helping with ideas, and I'm like, Mike, you just need to write this with me, because you're funnier than I am, and I think it works really well, and we've been doing that nonstop since like October, and since then it's just been a crazy amount of fun to be putting this stuff together and having people react to it and seeing it in different places, and to actually kind of like become a part of this community, which has been really crazy, like meeting you for instance, something like that. But it's just been a lot of fun. We've been having a blast with it.
It's always good to enjoy your work, I tend to find, and it's been getting a little bit more intense for you recently, I've noticed. Traffic's been going up, you've been getting a lot of features over on MMO Champion. BB seems to have taken a liking to the work, and I don't really blame him. So, how would you assess the current state of the site? Everybody always wants to be more successful than they currently are, but what kind of place do you think you're in right now?
I think we have a website that I really want to redesign really badly, because when I made it, it was like, oh, 5 people are going to see this. And now it's like, oh, we'll multiply that by a few thousand, 10,000 or whatever, and now we're working really hard to get that updated. We just started doing our stuff for PC Gamer magazine. That just hit the newsstands, the American version, not the English version. I apologize for that. We're not in the... Yeah, and so, but that just started coming out, and I have no idea how many eyeballs that reaches, but we just kind of comprehended that. Mike can go into how much of a fan he is of PC Gamer magazine, but that was kind of a dream come true for us, and we don't really know, we have no idea what the fallout or whatever the windfall from that is going to be. But we're kind of along for the ride at this point.
Yeah, I was super excited about that, because I actually have in my room back home and the first issue of PC Gamer I ever bought, which gives explicit instructions on how to build a dream machine that will run Quake really well.
Damn right. I can't remember what was the first one that I bought,
now.
But yeah, I've been a fan of PC Gamer for a long time. The UK version, of course, written by a different team. And I now believe, actually, most of the luminaries that I used to read went over to Rock, Paper, Shotgun, which a lot of our listeners are no doubt familiar with. But since you've just sort of dropped the whole PC Gamer thing on us from out of pretty much nowhere, so I think I'm going to have to ask you to go a little bit more in depth on that. Firstly, how the hell did that come about?
That was something where... Future US owns PC Gamer magazine,
Yep.
and I think that's where the UK one comes as well. But one of the guys there, I had made connection with him on Twitter. He had started following me on Twitter, and he was a big fan of ours. And so I wrote back to him. I said, "Hey man, I see that you work for this publishing company." He's like, "Oh yeah, I work for the official World of Warcraft magazine." And so I'm like, oh, really? Well, then we need to talk. And so we started talking from there. And they're in the same building as PC Gamer, and we discovered that they had a group of people that all kind of read our webcomic. And so that was like a year ago. And then it was a case of, well, we need to do something together. And it was just kind of a case of kicking something around. And about a year later, we finally said, look, if we would love to work together. And they said, well, we have this backspace column, which I think Yahtzee at one point did.
Yes, he did at one
wrote
point.
for them for a while. And so they were like, would you like to do that for us? And we're like, okay, let me think. Yes. a lot of thought went into making that decision for about 0.2 seconds. And then we started doing it. So I think it's going to be a regular feature now. And I think we should be, we have our second one coming out in about a couple weeks. And I don't think we're going to be stopping to do it anytime soon, at least until they tell us no. I'm not certainly going to be stopping.
Yeah, it's really nice because we're going to get an opportunity, as much as I love WoW, to tell jokes about something other than WoW, which when you're already doing it 3 times a week is kind of nice.
Yeah. We're going to be doing content of all stripes. I think the next one's definitely not WoW. I think we want to do a StarCraft one. We're both big StarCraft players as well. And so I think we're going to stop at that pit stop on the way to whatever else we come up with.
And note the difference between big and good.
Yes.
Well, yes, there is actually no relation whatsoever between big and good when it comes to StarCraft 2, that I can guarantee you. But whatever the case, it's kind of weird, really, when you think about it, that you ended up talking to someone from the official WoW magazine and then ended up in PC Gamer. Do you not think the Daily Blink is something that would actually work within the official World of Warcraft magazine, or is it too infrequent, or is it perhaps a little bit too topical?
It might be a bit too topical. It's a quarterly magazine. It's basically BlizzCon in print form, and we tend to poke at Blizzard a lot. And I'm not going to say that they're like looking at us and going, oh well, they're being too honest, shut them up or anything. I don't think it's the case, but I think that we're a much better fit for PC Gamer than we are the WoW magazine in terms of we've had our chops at them, and it's usually in fun, and it's always in the context of, look, we're big fans. I don't think there's any mistake about that, but at the same time, it gives us more freedom to kind of say what's on our mind, as opposed to, going down the company line, so to speak.
Well, and remember, the last time we said something about Blizzard, we made fun of how they never used Thrall, and then they responded like a week later with a post saying they were going to rip his soul into 4 pieces and scatter it across Azeroth.
Whoops.
Whoops. Yeah.
Indeed. So, got the WoW magazine stuff out of the way, and to be fair, I'm not a massive fan of the WoW magazine anyway, so it does seem to make sense. And it's funny that you should mention the fact that you wonder whether or not Blizzard actually either not so much approves, but is umming and ahhing and tutting and saying, oh, I wish they weren't saying things like that. Now, obviously, we all know this for a fact, that Blizzard is not overly concerned with people making fun of them. They are not the kind of people that get upset about that. Some fanboys are of the belief that they are, which is absolute, complete and total nonsense. They are more than capable of dealing with having satire built around it, and in fact, I think they thrive on it a little bit, and I have no doubt that some of them read and enjoy it. So I suppose the question would now be, have you actually had any contact directly with Blizzard about any of your work?
We've had very limited. I know for a fact that people on the inside have linked our comic around, and they include us in the community update that goes out once a month on battle.net.
Yep.
And one of them was was based off our Dune parody, The Loot Must Flow.
Yes.
They titled it after that. So I know that at least their community team reads it. I know people inside pass around the link every once in a while. I've made friends with 1 or 2 people inside the mothership that admit to reading the comic and know that people pass it around. So we're not an unknown entity by any stretch of the imagination. So, but in terms of like an official stance on us, no, we're nowhere near big enough for them to care about us on that level.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. And I have to ever wonder if Blizzard would actually take an official stance on anything satirical in that way. I know that they have in the past had fan sites that have been critical of them, without question. I know because I ran one of them. But I don't know if the attitude has really changed over the past few years. It's not really worth speculating on, really. Blizzard is a difficult company to actually communicate with, as no doubt you have experienced. They're kind of weird in that way, and it's to be expected. They're very large, and they're also now part of Activision, so the marketing department is elsewhere, and it's a little tricky. But whatever the case, it's good to see that they're not stomping on fan sites at the moment.
Oh yeah, and I think that they realize for them is that there's nothing to be gained by doing it. I mean, it's like it's what was it? Penny Arcade has, at one point they had a post up on a wall or something like that that basically said, "We do not react to people reacting," and I think that that's an excellent policy and one that I try and follow as much as possible. You can only do so much good by feeding the trolls, and the amount of bad that you can do is so much more.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate when a company decides to do something that can be easily perceived by the community as anti-community. Torches and pitchforks will be applied, and that's not what you want at all. So, I want to know a little bit about the process that you guys go through in order to actually create a comic. So, let's just try and keep it nice and concise. How does an idea come to form, and how does it actually then end up on the page? What's the process that you guys go through?
It's actually a very simple process. I want to go to sleep. It is Tuesday night. And if I don't come up with a comic, I can't go to bed.
You know, I can relate to this, actually. It's exactly the same with my workflow. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. Sleep is an incredibly powerful motivator.
It is. We've never had a buffer, really. I think there was one week where we knocked out all 3 strips over the weekend and said, "There, we're done for the week. Take the week off." But they usually get made the night before. Half of which, probably 50% of it, is because we try to be as topical as possible when we can be, and we have something to actually say on the subject. But also because we're lazy and we like playing games, and making comics gets in the way of playing our games.
Of course.
Of course, if we don't play the games, then we have nothing to talk about. So
yeah, absolutely. In terms of the actual workload, how is this in terms of a full-time job? Is it getting there? Are you already doing it as a full-time job, or?
I could see it getting to that level. The one thing is, like, I'm a game designer. Mike's in the Navy. I love my career. Mike doesn't have a choice. So it's well, for a few more years. I have no idea, but it's a case of where I don't think I'd want it to be a full-time job. I love it as the side project it is. We're talking about doing more things with the website and kind of expanding ourselves out and really enjoying the success that we're having right now.
Yeah.
But it's always weighed against, okay, well, how much time is this going to take? We're both married. We both have lives that we would like to very much hold on to. Mm-hmm. So at the expense of that is always the question we always have.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of ideas and future projects and things like that, what kind of ideas are you knocking around at the moment that you would really like to do?
Mike, what can we talk about? There's stuff that we're always bandying about. What should we go public with?
Let's see. Well, we keep trying to figure out a way to keep the blank pure as far as WoW is concerned, and then create this amorphous something else that will have a more expansive coverage of games, because we both play a lot more than WoW, but it has never really gotten beyond that point, because usually we get about 5 minutes in that conversation, and then Chris goes, "We should probably write the comic first," and I go, "You're right," and then we finish it, and I go to bed.
I know right now we're trying to figure out a website redesign, and as part of that, we want to launch a guild. We want to do our own Daily Blink guild for people to get together and kind of build that little community around. As so many other webcomics have done in the past, we are nothing if not unoriginal, but we're going to at least enjoy it as much as possible.
Absolutely.
But right now we're trying to decide what server to make it on. I have characters across like 12, 13 different servers, just, build a character here because a couple friends are there and whatnot, but we don't really have an allegiance anywhere. And so what we want to do is we just want to have, like, I don't want to know if I want to call it a contest, but we just want to be like, convince us to come join your server. You can use any reason whatsoever. You can Twitter us, you can write an essay, take screenshots, make a machinima, whatever you want to do to convince us to come to yours. And the only rule is, if you convince us, you convince us. And we'll post, like, people that try and do stuff are like, well, this didn't convince us, but this is really funny, check it out. I think that would be a fun little project.
I am way more looking forward to the failures than the successes.
And then the winner's going to end up being like, this person sent us $20 over PayPal. We're coming to their server. All right, here we go.
Oh yes, oh yes. That's always the best way to do things. Haul yourselves out. Why not? Enjoy it while it lasts. That's the best thing you can do when it comes to this kind of thing.
Hey, I'm easy, but I'm not cheap.
I was young and I needed the money.
There you go, folks.
Yeah,
you heard it here first.
This was not a news flash. This was always very well known.
This is common knowledge indeed. So, you do have that guild coming up, which is great. And what I would suggest to people is, of course, to keep an eye on things. You would like to keep an eye on things to know when this is going to be happening. So, what's the best place for them to do that?
Obviously, our website is www.thedailyblink.com. You can always check out our comic strips there every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we try and blog as much as possible. Trying to do that more lately. We also have our own Facebook page, facebook.com/thedailyblink. If you follow people on Twitter, you can check us out there at twitter.com/dailyblink. There's no "the" in the Twitter, just to be confusing. And you can subscribe to our RSS feed. But generally the guild, we're trying to get up merchandise. People have been asking about like T-shirts and whatnot. It's always tricky when what we do is something we can't sell. Like people always want posters or prints of our strips, and we can't. That's one thing I'll never try and do. So, but we're trying to figure out what we can offer people. Yeah. So, but yeah, please come check out our stuff. If you already check out our stuff, please let your friends know. If you don't like us, let your mortal enemies know, and we'll be glad to have that traffic.
Yep. Haters gonna hate, and they're wonderful when it comes to publicity. Absolutely fantastic things. I absolutely love haters.
Really? I had no idea that you had any experience with that.
Oh, well, limited. Very, very limited, of course.
Very small. One or two.
Indeed, one or two, indeed. But I think the greatest thing about haters versus fans is that fans might occasionally tell their friends about how great you are, but haters will consistently shout from the rooftops about how they hate you so very much and how your latest video is so bad. You should definitely go watch it and see how horrible it was.
I'll tell this one story before we go to break.
Is this about the designer guy?
Yeah, we have this guy. He stopped lately. Like I think he just finally gave up. But so I'm a graphic designer. I'm not a print designer. Like I've been using Photoshop for a long time, but I'm almost completely self-taught. And so my print elements are not always going to be, the point is to be funny. The point is not to be accurate. And we had this guy that was always sending in these nasty comments about how my kerning sucked and how my font selections were bad and how I had no business parroting print design and we were just laughing about it. And Mike is always like, come on, let me respond. I'm like, no, it's not funny. But if he's listening to this, yes, we get your comments and they're hilarious. We'd love you to send more.
Oh, yes. Feed that troll. Feed it.
That will be the only feeding you do.
Oh yes.
But it's not like a regular troll. He's a magazine layout troll, which is the lamest thing to get all up in arms about. Like, I don't like your placement of fonts.
I don't like your kerning. It's like most people don't even know what that means. What are you talking about? Oh Lord.
Apparently, I don't either. So.
There you go. How very unfortunate for him and for you, but mostly for him.
Yes, exactly.
Oh well, never mind. Well, folks, we're going to be taking a short break, and when we come after it, we're going to just lay back on the interview format for a little while, and we're just going to talk a little bit about patch 4.1. These two cynical fellows would like to have a word about that particular patch, which they absolutely adore and love in every possible respect. My name's
Pages are awesome.
Biscuit. Yes. They are, actually. That is the one thing that I can't really complain about. We'll talk a little bit about that after the break. Chris and Mike from the Daily Blink. Myself, Total Biscuit, here with Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. We'll be back after this break. Don't go anywhere.